I'm going to talk about what we've just seen and the common theme that was running through that video. Question, what do you believe is the number one driver of addiction and depression and anxiety and things like that? Anyone got any idea? Yes? Fear. Anyone else? Alcohol? Well, you need that, yeah. Pain? Poverty? Anyone else? Trauma? Anyone else?
Attachment disorders. He told me to tell you that.
Okay. All of those are factors. The number one driver of, and this is talking to thousands of recovering addicts. How many recovering addicts are here? Kia ora, my brothers and sisters. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The number one driver for alcohol, for addiction, for depression and for suicide is the inner critic. That little voice in our heads that drives us mad. I'll talk to you a little bit about my journey through alcoholism and drug addiction, and then when I'm finished we'll open up the floor to questions. Is that cool with everyone? So we've got till 20 to 4, so here we go. So my story starts, my journey into alcoholism and drug addiction started with self-esteem issues. I had huge self-esteem issues when I was going to school. How many people have self-esteem issues? Show of hands if you have self-esteem issues, straight up. Thank you so much for your honesty. How many people here have great self-esteem and feel good about themselves? Yes, excellent, thank you. And how many people are in between? You're the normals, cool. So I had really low self-esteem when I was going to school, and that was the beginning of my drive towards alcoholism, drug addiction and depression. The reason I had no self-esteem when I was going to school was because I was an ugly child. I know it's hard to believe looking at me now, but when I was going to school I was ugly. I was an ugly child. I can say it now. I was 4'11", had buck teeth, had big ears, had a huge head. Anyone else have body issues? Hands straight up if you have body issues. Thank you so much, brave people. Thank you for opening up and discussing that. I think it's really cool. It's a really hard thing to do, to admit in front of a room full of strangers. So I thank you. For those of you who didn't put your hand up, some of you probably should put your hands up. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, hey, buy a mirror, because clearly some of you should put your hands up. I was always worried about the way I looked. My thing was my big head. When I was born, I had a really big head. This is the head I was born with. I didn't have the beard. That would be weird. But imagine this head on a small baby's body. I knew I had a big head on the day I was born, because when I came out of my mother, the doctor went, this fellow's got a big head. So for me, I was always stressing about how I looked. My nickname when I was going to school, Head. No, seriously, that was my nickname. We were really basic back in the 60s. You know, there was nothing fancy. You got a big head, you were Head. And they didn't even have to call me Big Head. The big wasn't necessary, because when I came around the corner of the school building, it would take my body 20 minutes to catch up with my head. So it was like, here's Head. So I was always stressing. I could never mix with the other kids. I would always sit outside the staff room at lunchtime and playtime, because no one picks on you outside the staff room. They might get caught. I had one friend at school. He was a Fijian guy. His name was Nigel. That's his real name. I don't know what's wrong with Nigel. I had a big head. I think he had big feet. And so, we'd have conversations, we'd talk. But most of the time, I'd have conversations with myself. How many people have conversations with themselves? Show of hands, please. Straight up in the air if you have conversations with yourself. Hands up, anyone in the room who doesn't have conversations with themselves or is not sure what I'm talking about? Anyone out there that doesn't have conversations with themselves? So, 2/3 of the room know how to put their hands up, and 1/3 of the room don't care. Is that right? Is that where we're at? So, everyone, for ease of understanding, everyone in the room has conversations with themselves, am I right? White people call it thinking. If you think, you're having a conversation with yourself, right? I mean, that's a conversation. But if you have great self-esteem, your conversations or the way you think around, practical things. If you're a bloke, I've got to get up to Auckland this afternoon, so I've got to get out of here by 4 o'clock so I can beat the traffic. That's a bloke conversation, right? Ladies, you have different conversations. I'm not sure how your conversations go. I don't know. Got to go to the party on Saturday. Should I wear the red dress or the black one? Daryl likes the red dress, so I'll wear the black one. I don't know, ladies, is that any conversations you have? Yeah, good. So that's normal people's conversations. But if you have no self-esteem, our conversations are always around what other people are thinking about us. How many people stress about what other people are thinking about them? So we all have high EQs, right? We have high emotional quotients. How many people know what an emotional quotient is? How many people don't know what an emotional quotient is? Okay, cool. How many people know what an IQ is? Cool. How many people don't know what an IQ is? An IQ, for those of you who don't know, is how much brains you got. I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, I only got one brains. One head, one brains. Emotional quotient is how connected you are with your emotions and how connected you are with the emotions of other people. I think when I was growing up, my dad called that being a soft cock. Because we grew up in that hard and upstate staunch culture. So if you want to know whether or not you've got a high emotional quotient, how many people here can walk into a room of strangers and instantly pick up a vibe that someone that doesn't like you? You have a high emotional quotient. High emotional quotients are good. Most people with high emotional quotients can go on and have great jobs and because they're connected with the people around them. They become great leaders because they can empathise with people around them. So when I was at school, I had a high emotional quotient. I was having constant conversations with myself. I had two voices in my head. I call them voices. They're not really voices. I have the devil, which is that voice that makes me do all those stupid things that you've seen me do over the years. And then I have the angel, that reassuring voice in your head. Is everyone familiar with the angel? That little voice that reassures you that you're a good person. You're a good person, Michael. You're a good person. Just smile your big smile and people will like you. That's my mum. That's my mum reassuring me. And the devil's that voice that makes me do stupid stuff and beats me up constantly causes me to second guess myself. And when I was going to school, I used to always look at the positive kids in the room. The positive kids were the ones that really shone for me because they had everything that I didn't have. They had friends. They had always laughter around them. They always had wonderful gatherings. Here was me sitting outside the staff room. Here was them having fun. So I always used to look at the popular kids and go, wow, it'd be so cool to be popular. Who are the popular kids at school? Yes. Where are the popular kids? Shake your hands, popular kids. Popular kids, cool. Lovely. What's your name, young lady? Hira. See, even your name's cool. Gee. So I used to look at people like you and go, oh, wow, he was so cool. It'd be so cool to be part of Hiwa's group. Why don't you go and introduce yourself, Michael? Go and introduce yourself there. Shut up. You can't introduce yourself to you. Why not? You're a good person. Just smile your big smile and people will like you. Have you seen the size of your head? There's no fat heads in that group, man. Just shut up. So I sat outside the staff room. I sat outside the staff room for 2 years. 2 years I sat there. Like, not the whole time. I went home after school, had a shower. I didn't stay there on the weekend. That would have been weird. Just lunchtime and daytime. Until one day I discovered I was funny. Now, I didn't know I was funny. I fell into funny by accident. A friend of mine told a joke, a knock-knock joke. And I didn't think it was funny, and I made a knock-knock joke up on the spot. Now, bear in mind, there are no funny knock-knock jokes in the world. Anyone here got a funny knock-knock joke? Yes, what is it, mate? You put your hand up, my friend. What's your knock-knock joke? Usually they start with knock-knock. See, there are no funny knock-knock jokes in the world. I read the world's first funny knock-knock joke. It's the moldy knock-knock joke. You want to hear the moldy knock-knock joke? The moldy knock-knock joke, on the count of 3, you start. 1, 2, 3. I'm already in now. Some of the white people in the audience are looking at me confused. Hey, we're moldy, we don't knock. Just go straight through that window, boy. So I started making up jokes. And as I started making up jokes, I started to get a little bit popular. Before I knew it, I had my own little crew. I'm looking over here, we're going to get boy, I've got my own crew. He would be looking with all her friends, looking over going, hey man, check out Head. He's got his own crew. One day he will come rolling up to me and say, hey Head, come and join our group. Greatest day of my life. Greatest day of my life. Now I'm with the popular kids, man. Now I'm rolling with the popular kids. I'm rolling with them. This is how I used to roll when I was at school. Not because at school. Because I had a really big head. And it was hard to hold up. Especially in a strong wind. Thanks, Mum. My mum, she always loves me, you know. That's my boy! So I'm hanging out with the popular kids, and now all I want to do is make people laugh. That's all I want to do. Now this was day 1 of my downfall. Because this was the first day that I started to get my self-esteem from the approval of other people. This was the day that I became a people pleaser. And the thing is, I've been touring around the country now for 3.5 years. I've spoken to over 100,000 kids from Invercargill to Kaitaia. And this is a major problem among our young people today. Our young people today, because they're not getting their self-esteem built up by the significant adults in their life, they are having to go other places to get their self-esteem. They go on things like Facebook and social media and all of these other things to get the love that they need. And even I do it, even today. The trouble when you're getting your self-esteem from the approval of other people, you can get 1,000 fabulous comments and likes. But it only takes one negative comment to throw all of that out the window. I go online, I'll put up something like on Facebook, people go, oh, like, heart, you're amazing, you're the man, you're so inspirational, and then someone writes, dickhead. And all of that goes out the window. So I run around and I start making up jokes. I'm in the popular group. After about a month, what I didn't realize, popular culture gets bored with stuff really quickly. And after a month, the popular kids got bored with my jokes and they decided to use me in a different way. They decided to use me to make fun of other kids so we could have a laugh at their expense. Head, go and pick on that kid. Go and pick on that kid. Go and pick on that kid. I knew this was wrong. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. What was the alternative? And then one day they go and said, Head, pick on that kid over there. And the kid they pointed out was my friend Nigel. Now you can imagine the conversation in my head. We can't pick on Nigel. Nigel's our friend. There's no way we can pick on Nigel. Shut up, man. We're in the popular group. Waste him. But he's our friend. He's done nothing to us. He's the only guy that's ever supported. Shut up. You want to get kicked out of the popular group? Go over there and waste him. Now I'd like to say that I had the courage of conviction to turn to the popular kids and go, hey man, stick your group. I'm going to roll with my boy Nigel. But my biggest fear back then, and still my biggest fear today, and the biggest fear of our children, is to be isolated. So I went over and I made fun of my friend Nigel. I remember going home that night, I was 8 years old, and I remember crying myself to sleep. I cried myself to sleep because I still believed I was a good person. I didn't waste my friend because I was a horrible person. I did it to save myself. That was my way of saying, what was my alternative, as I said earlier? You know, either ignore the popular kids and end up sitting outside the library by myself, or take them down and just so I could be surrounded by other people. Now the irony is I knew these kids didn't like me, but I didn't care. I would rather be with a group of people that didn't like me than to be sitting inside my own head beating me up. And since I've got an understanding of this, I understand why people stay in bad relationships now. You know, I see it all the time, you know, and why I no longer judge those people. You see on the news quite often that women who are in violent relationships, and you hear the comments from people, why doesn't she just leave? I mean, it's, you know, she wants to stay in that relationship. Oh, you know, I can't believe, you know, she could just leave. She go to women's refuge. There are a whole lot of services out there. The reason people don't leave those toxic relationships is because the alternative is worse. Sitting inside your own head is worse. That is the power of the inner critic. That is the power of that little voice in your head that says you're useless, you are never going to amount to anything, and no one likes you. So I woke up the next day, I brushed myself off, I went to school, and I went from being bullied at school to being the bully. This happened for the next 5 years. Pick on this kid, pick on that kid. And I could justify it every time. Every time someone got upset about it, went to the principal, went to a teacher, I fell back on that age-old excuse. It was just jokes. We were just having a laugh. We didn't mean to make them upset. By the time I was 13 years old, I had a war going on inside my head. And the war going on inside my head was kind of mirrored by the war that was going on in my life. My mum and dad had just bought their first house in a little place called Rotorua Village. They paid 3,000 quid for it. Money was really tight. Only my dad worked. My mum volunteered to go to work to help pay the bills. That caused friction because my old man was like, how dare you embarrass me? I'm the man of the house, I work, you stay at home. So there was constant friction. You know, there was constant fighting. I mean, not once for warriors fighting, just yelling at each other all week, except on Friday and Saturday night. On Friday and Saturday night, Dad would bring a couple of flagons home from the pub. We'd have cousins come over, friends come over, and there was this really, really family environment. You know, people would stay over, our friends would stay over, and it was fun. Saturday we'd go off and play sports, we'd come home, the guitars would come out, and it was fun. Sunday was hangover day, Monday, here we go again. So I immediately associated alcohol with fun. And as a 13-year-old kid, man, I wanted me some fun. So I remember going to the old man's liquor cabinet and stealing a flagon of blackberry nip. Yeah, some of the old people in the audience will recognise that. For you young people, a blackberry nip was like raspberry kerosene. It was foul, right? But I remember the first time I got drunk. Now, alcohol was a game changer for me. And it's a game changer for most people who have addicted personalities. Alcohol gave me three things I didn't expect. The first thing alcohol gave me was false confidence. My whole life I've been wearing this mask of the funny guy, this mask of the confident guy. But with alcohol, I didn't have to wear the mask. I felt great about myself. You know, alcohol allowed me to do something I'd never done before. It allowed me to talk to girls. I'd never spoken to a girl before, but I remember getting drunk and going up to the best looking girl in school, and I'll never forget what she was wearing. She was wearing an orange jacket, and she was sitting down and she was looking at me, and I went up to her and I was like, that's my sexy face. I wanted to talk, but no words would come out. When I finally did talk to her, I'll never forget saying to her, I was like, in my deepest, sexiest Barry White voice, I was like, hello! You she looked at me exactly the same way you're looking at me now, with confusion. And I'll never forget what she said. She looked me straight in the eye. She had beautiful brown eyes, and she looked me straight in the eye. And I'll never forget what she just looked at me and she went, "You got a big head." Now that should have hurt, right? That should have hurt, because that was my biggest fear in life, that people would highlight my faults. But with alcohol, it didn't hurt. When she said, "You got a big head," I was like, "Oh yeah? Oh, glad you noticed." So alcohol gave me confidence, and alcohol took away pain. The third thing alcohol did for me, and most importantly, it shut the conversations up in my head. It was like someone got a giant mattress and threw it over those two voices, so I didn't have to listen to myself. I got a break from myself for a short amount of time. I was saved from myself. It was such a great feeling, just being able to forget it. Unfortunately, it's a temporary fix. It's like being in a room with these voices, like being in a room with a crying baby that's just screaming and screaming and screaming, and you think, "Bugger it, I'm going to leave the crying baby behind and I'm going to get drunk." And you never fully escape, because you can still hear in the deepest, darkest, you can still hear the baby crying, but it gives you a little break from yourself. Unfortunately, when you wake up in the morning, the baby's crying louder and you've got a headache. And the only thing that gets on top of it again is more drink. At 17 years old, alcohol wasn't getting me out of the hole of despair anymore. In fact, it was driving me deeper into it. So I started in on the drugs, started out smoking weed, moving my way up to pinkies. People know what pinkies are back in the day. And then just moving slowly forward, tripping out, just whatever I could. I call it the relentless pursuit of temporary happiness. Now, that's the problem. The solution to the problem is this. If I'd been able, as a young person, to open up and talk about my insecurities, and not been forced to hide behind that hardened up, stay staunch Kiwi attitude that we have in this country, if it had been okay to talk about problems, if the significant adults in my life had opened up and talked about their problems and showed me that problems were normal, then I might have been saved. But because I had to hold on to my problems, I was a drug addict and alcoholic for 30 years. The best part of my life, my eldest 3 kids, I don't remember. I always kidded myself into pretending that I was a good dad, because I made up for my physical absence by buying them whatever they wanted under that foolish guise of I'm providing my children with everything that I never had as a child. Yeah, I provided them with everything I never had as a child, everything except the father. Currently, Ministry of Health statistics will tell us that 20% of the population of New Zealand will have a major depressive episode at some stage in their life associated with some type of addictive behaviour. Anyone surprised by that stat? No one. Here's the surprising. So 20% of the population will have a major depressive associated with some type of addictive behaviour, whether it's hitting the drink, hitting the drugs, hitting the gambling, whatever it is. But here's the statistic that no one hears about. 80% of those people will never ask for help. 80%. Why won't they ask for help? Because they're worried about judgment. They're worried about what other people say, what other people will do. They're worried about job prospects. They're worried about looking weak. They're embarrassed. Everything associated with what other people will think, which drives the inner critic, which forces us to push the loved ones away because I don't want to appear weak. I'll put on my mask. The government are currently spending $1.4 billion on mental health and addiction services. But 80% of that money is going on the 20% of the 20% of the people with the problem. It's all going into intervention and postvention. But no money is being spent on the 80% of the population who have no idea what mental health is, who have no idea what addiction is, who have no idea what suicide is, yet whose judgmental attitude is having the greatest effect on the 20%. It's fine to have an ex-All Black doing commercials, writing help in the sand and telling people to open up and talk about their problems. But if there's a chance that I'm going to be judged, if there's a chance that I'm not going to be heard, that I'm going to be ridiculed, I'm going to be bullied, I'm going to sacrifice job opportunities, I'm going to sacrifice opportunities to advance in my company, there's no way I'm going to open up and talk. So what I believe needs to happen is we need to not only continue the great work that we're doing in the intervention phase, working with drug addicts and alcoholics to get them to a better place, but more importantly, we need to start working with society. We need to start arming them with tools to help us, to encourage us to open up and talk about our problems. This isn't bottom of the cliff stuff. This stuff should be happening at the very least in the intermediate schools, creating empathy, arming our young people with tools to open up and talk. We need to normalize having problems. We need to stop driving for perfection with our kids and telling them off every time they make mistakes. Because every time we tell them off for making mistakes, we're telling them, I'm a perfect adult, you're always making mistakes, you are never going to make it. Mistakes are a normal part of life. We need to make it okay to talk about problems. If you want your kids to talk about their problems, my friends, you have to start talking about your problems. How many people in this room have told their children every dirty little secret about themselves? They all know you're a skank. They all know. They know everything about you. Your children know everything about you. Because when your girlfriends are over, ladies, you speak really loud. When you're drinking at your house, your walls are paper thin. They know every dirty little secret about you. And by you not opening up and talking about that, what you are telling your children is you must keep secrets. And secrets keep you sick. Now, I'm not suggesting that you girls or boys run home and go, kids, come here. Mummy's got something really important to say. I was on the pole. No, we don't need to do that. We don't need to do that. But what I'm saying is we need to start role modeling positive behaviour in front of our children. We need to be the role models. We've got a young generation coming up now who are getting their self-esteem from the approval of other people. So these are the most likely candidates for addiction. Forget all this crap about resilience training. What a load of bollocks that shit is. No, seriously. You can't teach resilience. Resilience comes from making mistakes, and you can only make mistakes if you let the children know that it's okay to make mistakes. You can't teach resilience. And anyone who thinks they can is a moron. Seriously, I'm sick of it. Resilience, the only thing resilience, that word is good for, is funding. That's it. If you don't have resilience in your proposal, forget about it. You ain't getting any money. But you can't teach it. It comes from life's experience. And in order to have that experience, we must make it okay. We must give our children permission to make mistakes. Well, any questions? No, you don't have to clap. It's all good. It's all good. I'm used to it.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Any comments?
Yes.
The video, of course. Are you happy with us using that as a presentation?
Pardon?
The video that you've shown us, are you happy with what you
That's not my video. That's been put out by the Ministry of Health. I was just part of it. It's the first time I've seen it. I thought it was pretty good. You know why I thought it was pretty good? Because lots of old people walked out and lots of young people nodded. That tells you two things. Old people are stuck in the wrong world, and they're ignoring the voice of the young people. You know, so we've got to stop looking at our young people as being the problem. The young people are the solution to the problem, and until we start listening to them, nothing's going to change. We're an old generation trying to sell Engelbert to hip hop. It's never going to work, my friend. Anybody else? Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Susie, love you. Oh.